kiss and hug me. Come on, strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say, if you want to be more than friends, got some love I'd like to make. Maybe you can squeeze me.
Welcome everyone to Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah, episode number 3. And today we are talking about Actionable Authority. I had to read that to get the... Hi, Charles.
Hi, Deborah. How are you? Thanks for having me back.
Sure thing. I'm doing well. I've been curious about this topic for weeks now because you suggested it. And I don't know why. I just can't get it in my head. That's why I have to actually read it off. So I'm looking forward to Charles telling us what Actionable Authority...
Well, just because I suggested it doesn't mean I really know. No, but I think it's I think that the marketplace, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there are really a lot of voices now, in the consultant class. I mean, there are a lot of us, and a lot of us are really, I think, getting the fundamentals, are getting the fundamentals down. I mean, before, I'd say, maybe, let's say 5-6 years ago, regardless of how many of us there were who were kind of moving into consultancy and moving onto the internet, we sort of knew the components, but the fundamentals were kind of getting lost. But I think more people are starting to understand what it means to do collaboration, right, and how important that is. People are starting to understand, I think, what it means to have a unique selling proposition, or whatever you call it, something that makes you, kind of stand out over here. People are understanding all of those and understanding what it means to build a list, or, they call it a tribe, and, whatever you call the concept. I think people are getting it. They're, if they do it on Google Plus, if they do it on Facebook, all those fundamentals, it seems that now at this point at which we are building businesses solely as a result of the ones and zeros, right, the digital stuff, people are starting to understand those fundamentals. So in light of that, you could have a lot of people saying a lot of the same things, and it's almost as if now it's kind of like that next step really is, and I don't know who used the phrase, but it's kind of like you've got to add to the conversation. And so it's not enough to say, hey, you need a USP. Well, I heard that from 10 other people. I read it on 10 blogs. It's in everybody's book on Kindle. I know that now. Well, number one, what do you have to add to that? And then number two, right, is it something that I can put in my business? In other words, have I put it in mind before I tell you got to do it? And number two, is it gonna work? Is it something different than all the other folks who are saying the very same things? Because when you pick up you get RSS feed and you do, you have a keyword. Well, you get pretty much that keyword, but to some degree, a lot of people saying some variation of the same thing. And that's not going to necessarily cut it in order to start, getting people to say, well, yeah, I want to do business with you. If you don't have
a lot of noise out there.
I don't know. What do you think?
It seems like a lot of things popped in my head as well. That's not unusual, but as you're talking, but if you had to really simplify it, I mean, I think a lot of us understand the term authority, and even Google uses that as far as the authority on Google as a writer, as a publisher, so forth. But I think you have to answer the question, why? It seems like it used to be what, and it's like, oh, here's your USP, your unique selling point. But now it's like, why do I want to buy from that person? It's not just what am I buying, why do I want to buy, what makes that person more of an authority than person B or person C?
Yeah. And it's almost as if, kind of the key is, are you really bringing, right? Are you, not you personally, but anyone, are we really taking people to the promised land, right? Are we really taking people to the point of the spear? Or are we just saying the things that are correct? It says, yeah, it's correct that you got to have a USP. That's right. But there's a way that it has been manifested in what you do. There's a way in which it's been manifested in what I do. And when I talk to somebody, I've got to be able to bring not only the USP, but I've got to bring all of that other stuff with me. Otherwise, it becomes just, as you said, noise.
Well, and it's like a regurgitation. I was also thinking about music, a musician, and I always, I love Ella Fitzgerald. I would love to sing like Ella Fitzgerald.
Right, yeah.
But I don't want to be another Ella Fitzgerald. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the memory of her. She deserves that spotlight of being her. I want to be my own person, Deborah E. So, for example, I did the cover tune Black Coffee. It's true there's similarities to Ella's version, but I listened to it to really absorb the feeling of the song and what I believe the songwriter meant. I listened to Ella's interpretation, and then I stopped listening to it so that when I actually performed it, and when I put it on my CD, it was Deborah E.'s interpretation of Black Coffee, rather than a complete regurgitation, replication, because otherwise I'm not adding to anything. I'm simply doing a cover and trying to sound like Ella. But I need to be able to add something myself to have it be something new.
Because there should be a reason for people to come and listen to Deborah E.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just doing Ella, well, there are probably 1,000 people who just do Ella. But when you bring Deborah E to it, then it's not that it's Ella. It's still you that people are coming for. And I think that seems to me to be like this next stage, and it's almost hard to put a label on it in any way other than it's got to be. It's almost like we know the correct things to tell people. Everybody knows the correct things to tell people and what's not going to lead them astray. Yeah, there are all kinds of technical things like, do you have this kind of WordPress blog? But even that stuff, these days, you get somebody else to do that who really knows what they're doing. But really bringing it all together, it's almost as if it's going to work for somebody, they don't necessarily have to do it, but I've got to be able to tell them with enough authority that I know it works because I've seen it. Not that I have to, not that the only things I can show people are things that I've done, but I've got to be able to kind of bring something that is sure to work, and I got to have more than I read it in a blog or I took it in an information product course.
So you're saying more than just, here, I'm going to ask you a question in the form of kind of a story. And a lot of this, I got to give Charles Terrence Harper credit because a lot of this is inspired by you. But in my Hangout Queen, I talk about doing webinars. And I have the Deborah Anderson way of doing it, which is actually very complicated. And then thanks to you, Charles, you told me about the Hangout plugin. I actually present both. So I'm able to say, I am doing this successfully, but in order to do this more easily, here's a plugin that does some of the same things, but makes it, 90% easier than what I'm doing. Now, to take it, the next step is I'm actually helping a gal, Angela England, with her webinars, and we're running through kind of a test case on this. So what you're saying is it's not just me saying, hey, I do these webinars, this works, but also to say, I've taught Angela and I can see her using this plugin and it's working successfully. You're saying that's the complete package of the Actionable Authority.
Exactly, because in another month, right, you're going to be able to tell me something about that Hangout plugin that you would not have been able to tell anybody else, or even if you were to just have it as part of your or as part of your tools, you still couldn't really tell me whether or not it's going to work. But you've done this with Angela. You could then tell me, well, you know what? Yeah, you can use it, but here's what you're going to have to watch out for. If you're going to have to do these 4 things to make the Hangout plugin work. And I think that those are the kinds of things that are going to make the difference to customers and clients, and really just in general to who it is that you are building yourself to be. You're not just going to be some gal out there talking about hangouts, but really saying, hey, you know, these are things that work. I know they work because I've tested them, and that's how I know that this is what you should and should not do. And honestly, it really is the difference between, I think, 1 0 behind an information product or price and another 0 is testing, right? Because authority goes so far when it is followed by something that you've actually tested. And I think that's where I think all of us are really kind of going to the next step, which is testing stuff and then saying, okay, well, here's what you need to do based on what I've learned.
That makes sense, and that seems to fit really well with, like you mentioned, as far as a group of consultants and that next step, because they're consulting other people and taking their advice, and they're able to actually show by a case study that, yeah, like you said it several times, and it's finally light bulbs going on. But the works for me, and now it works for the people that I'm consulting.
Yeah, and I think it matters in marketing in this. Who would I buy from, right? Will I buy from somebody? Am I willing to pay more from somebody who's tested something and they've decided and they've proven their particular method works, or am I willing to buy something that just tells me the steps? The trick is, yes, I'll probably opt for the lower price thing, and when it doesn't work, then I'll opt for the person who has said that they have gone through the steps and they've tested it. Now, I don't know. Now, you may or may not be on the mailing list of these guys who are doing this video promotion. I guess, who's it? Andy Jenkins and Mike Vilsamen. I don't normally buy things like that, but here's what I'm noticing about their promotion right now. What they're talking about are things that, here are the things that we learned in testing. Here are the 13 things that you need to do in every video. And I think that that's why a lot of people are talking about this thing, is not just because it's them, right? And they're these superstars, but because they're really bringing solid. They're saying a lot of things that people say about how to do video, but they're saying, here's what we tested, here's what we came up with, and here's a way you ought to put these things in order if you're going to do a video that really carries weight with customers. And I think all of us, at some point, that's going to separate the guy who can say, who can say, I'm going to ask you for $900 for this, and I'm not gonna budge on my price, and you're going to eventually pay it. Even after you go and you opt to go and get something low price, you'll be back, because if you want to have something done right, here's where you get this done, and I've proven that it works. I think that that's where this whole thing is going, and again, it's going to shake things out, because folks who can prove that they know what they're talking about by having done them, those are going to be the folks who are going to end up getting the, whatever you want to call it, the customers, the contracts, the folks coming through their doors. It now matters if you've done it and not just if you say it.
You know, I was just thinking about Steve Harrison. I've mentioned him before. He has a summit where you get to meet the who's who as far as the different talk shows and so forth. And I don't remember which month, and I'm probably quoting the price wrong, but it's like $6,000 or $10,000 to go to the summit, and I don't think that includes, your transportation and so forth. So, it's a pricey endeavor. But you're right. So you may not spend that money now, but when you start to think, where do I want to go for quality and to get the connections, you start thinking, hey, I want to go revisit this. So a lot of times I think about going and I evaluate it, but until I found a blog post, and I wish I could give the gal credit, it was probably a year ago, she actually asked the question, was it worth it? And she broke down, without actually divulging any information that would be proprietary as far as the summit, she broke down, for instance, access to the Rolodex, access to this, coaching on this, and she put a price value on each of those things. And it turned out that she was getting more than $10,000 worth of help if she had, and she she approached it as if she piecemealed all of those elements, it would have cost her more than $10,000. Now, that wasn't Steve Harrison, and there's nothing to indicate that she was getting any kind of boost. In fact, it didn't even hit the SEO really well as far as the rankings. I don't know how I found it. It was an obscure little post, but that meant all the difference to say, yep, quality product.
Yeah, and again, and he doesn't have to discount it. You know, he doesn't have to say, you've got 15 days while the price is still this. It's kind of like, well, it's $10,000. We hope we see you. If we don't, man, you better make sure you're at the next one. I think, man, that's the point at which you really do have, the kind of authority that I think really works for you, not you in particular, but works for you, when you can really say, well, look, this works, you need this, and no, I'm not gonna discount it because that would devalue it. Plus, it's proven, and I don't have to say it. Here are all the people that have done it. I've done it, and that's why I actually brought it to the marketplace. I wouldn't have brought it to the marketplace. I think that's sort of what I'm seeing now is folks are saying, I'll bring this to the marketplace once I've done it. And man, if you start judging things on that basis, there's going to be a clear separation between what you buy and what you don't. When I did a local podcasting program, right? The
local podcast mogul?
Right, yeah. I could care less whether anybody bought it. I knew it worked. I knew everything in there. I knew everything that they did exactly what I told them to do, right? The way I said to do it, they'd be able to get customers. They'd be able to get some authority there in their local area. So honestly, I did the normal sales stuff, but I raised the price at this point, and now somebody comes and they want it. They'll ask every so often, when is it coming back down? It might not. It doesn't have to, right? I don't need the money from it. Worse than they really need to have that information, because again, it's something that I did, and it's something that other people did, and now it's something that other people are doing, and it's working. And I think that was eye-opening for me, because it was different than other things that I had presented before that I probably had good knowledge on. I had done some of it, but this is something that I've been doing for 4 years. So again, I know that it works if they do it. And I think that's what we got to start bringing to the marketplace, whether it's products or services.
So do you think that it's essential to, on the product, to say, I've done it and I've taught someone else and they've done it too, or is that kind of icing on the cake? In other words, when you're bringing the product to market, can you do it at that point and say, I've taken all these steps and it's been successful, and you can check out my success, as if the person bringing it to market is the case study, and then anyone else that they add to that is icing? Or do you think that they need to have 1 to 3 people that have also tested it? Is that a need, or is that just a good thing?
I think it's a good thing. I think where things are going, right, is that, again, who's going to be the person that holds my authority? Now, everybody can get my attention, right? Because if you're good enough, right, you're going to be able to get people's attention, however you do it, right? You can get somebody's eyeballs on your video. You can get their ears into a podcast if you're good. But how do you keep people's attention so that they, on their own? So this is sort of interesting to me, and I'll tell you, and I know that when it comes to just the pure nature of SEO and blogging at some level, right? I understand that to have traffic and people that come as a result of doing searches that they wouldn't have found you otherwise is good, and it always will be. But if you are a destination, that's a whole lot better than search. And so am I going to spend tens of thousands of dollars to be, quote unquote, dominating in search? Or do I want to spend tens of thousands of dollars toward being a destination so that people come to me on their own. I don't want people to come to me because they tripped over me on the search engine and then they got me and 9 other people they got to decide on, depending on what I'm selling. But I think that overall, if we're not a destination, we are vulnerable. Because look, I don't care. Do I care if Google changes their algorithm if people are coming to me on their own? Well, no. I don't care what Google does. I don't care what Bing does. I don't care if my stuff is search engine optimized. And there are people who don't process stuff that way. And some of that processing might not always be good. If you have something that you can seriously develop the kind of authority where people want to come to you because they want to, that's a goal, as opposed to, well, I want to get to the top of the search engines on all these keywords and stay. Both are good, but the only one that really insulates you, right, is getting people to come because, hey, I just like this dude. I like them. I'm going to that site because they're on my mind, right? I woke up and I was thinking about this thing, and I think I better go to this site and go look for it. That's the goal, and I think we're now moving to the point where people are starting to say, I'm not gonna stop at wanting to get to the top of the search engines. I got to go beyond that. I got to go beyond being found, right? Or beyond being found on social media or getting my ads out. I've got to be a destination. I've got to be someplace where people want to come to my site for whatever reason, right? Now, I mean, you could do that for any number of ways. You could, do some kind of crazy publicity kind of thing. But I think ultimately, we have to want, if this is our business, right, and our business depends on attention and eyeballs, then we have got to all evolve to a point where we get beyond just search.
Well, it's branding you, your voice, what you're selling. And, people may use Google or Bing to find you, but if they're looking for you, they're going to keep looking until they find you. Google is just a tool at that point.
It is. And I think they have proven, during this calendar year when they, they'll start something and they'll kill it off, right? Well, they're in business to make money, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it's kind of like they're not it to make sure that, the most worthy person wins in the game of building their business, right? And that's kind of hard, I think, when you first kind of come to that realization, like, okay, well, it's not fair because they're not making it to be fair. So when they come out and they say, excuse me, well, this is going to be doing, well, you can read the comment area of a lot of their blogs and you'll say, well, that's not fair because, you did all these other things up until this point, and then, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're building, as you said, a following or whatever you call it, tribe or whatever it is, to come to us as opposed to just being found, over time.
Exactly. So for our listeners, as it relates to actionable authority, what would be an action step that they could take?
Well, I think that really the first step is and this is something that I think you and Mike do well, which is you really kind of you did a call for the people on my subscriber list, and you talked about the difference that you make on your calls is you engage people. So that means that in spite of the internet and in spite of having a list, in spite of all this stuff, you probably know some people by name, right? And they feel like they know you. And it's not just you trick them into knowing. Well, I made them feel like they know me. It's knowing people. Mm-hmm. And so I think that everything that we can do to open channels, right? Again, without burning ourselves out, to open channels so that we make the effort to get to know people, that we have to do that. So I think sometimes that might mean hey, today might be the day you might have to survey your list, right? And you might have to invite them to send you email back and to answer some questions, some open-ended questions that, again, you might have to take some time to read what they say and get to know them. Why'd you ask? Can't do that all the time. You can't do that with 100% of the people. But the first step, I think, is really making the effort to give people the opportunity to get to know us and then to get to know them too. And again, this is going to help us to be able to design and develop the kind of services that work. As far as we know, they're working, but we really don't know until we talk to people. And we have to, I think, the real actionable step is doing something to get people talking to you.
And listening. The second part of that is listening to what they have to say.
Yep.
And if you don't understand what they're saying, ask questions to clarify what they're saying.
And I think, as you have said, you don't wait till one of the things I mentioned, the fact that you talk about engagement. Well, you don't wait till that point. You're doing your hangout and you're asking people and you're talking to people by name. And I think that, again, this is what social media is, right? It's really, it's not just we didn't know each other and we connected on these networks. Man, it's really looking at somebody face to face, right? And getting to know what it is what makes them tick, getting to know people, real people, and then using that information to kind of design what it is that we do. And if you're not, it's almost as if we're not doing that, it's not a matter of competition. It's a matter of we'll be separated out from people who are doing that.
That's a good point. There's a motivation. I mean, personally, my motivation is because I'm real and I enjoy being real. But that's a good point, that if you aren't doing that, somebody else is, and people will be drawn to that.
And there are a few who are doing it consistently, and as you said, they're not doing it because it's just about the money. It is smart business. Some people are just doing it because they're being real. And I think we mentioned the fact on your program that being of a help. What is it? ISTJ. In Myers-Briggs, you got a helping personality. Those people can make their way and really use who they are to really, I think to kind of come to the front of this area of, again, the consultant class. These are the folks who, again, as time progresses, if they stick with it, we stick with it, then these are going to be the folks that, again, will make the effort to really make things happen as a result of what people are saying and what will really help them in their business or in their life or whatever it is that they're doing.
And they're creating that sense of belonging, and people will keep coming and want to be close to that essence, if you will, and to learn from them and become like them and a community. Well, thank you, Charles. This has been, we can almost do a part 2 and part 3 just on actionable authority. I
think so. Yeah, right on. There's another kind of aspect of it I think that we could explore that I think we can talk about, because again, and there's a specific example in the news, in the popular press, that I think kind of crystallizes this. There's a negative example, there's a positive example, and we could kind of take these things apart and kind of look to see the elements are the same. Some people use it positively, some people use it negatively, but the elements are always the same for actionable authority.
Excellent. Okay, you got me curious. So don't tell our listeners what it is, except to say you got to come back and find out what these 2 examples are. And then Charles, whisper, let me know what it is so I can be prepared.
I can't say that there's a book that and a lot of folks have probably even read it. It was you got to kind of have the right perspective, but it's written by Ryan Holiday. And it was called Trust Me, I'm Lying, right? And
Trust Me, I'm Lying?
Trust Me, I'm Lying. It's by Ryan Holiday, and in it, I mean, there's a blueprint, but underlying it is this aspect of really having, what I think is actionable authority. You can use it in the way you want to, but the principles are there.
Okay, there you go. So the assignment is to go out and engage, make sure you're listening, and then read the book by Ryan Holiday on Trust Me, I'm Lying. And then come back and join us next week as we talk about it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
Yep. No, thank you. Thanks for having me, Deborah.
Sure thing. All right. See you next week.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Don't you wanna kiss and hug me? Come on, strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you wanna be more than friends. Got some love I'd like to make. Baby, you can squeeze me, I won't break. We could be in a paradise, you and me. Until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh yeah, until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh baby, just say when.